Good morning to you, Landon. You got some interesting information here on some other names in this space, more of the retail bent to it that maybe I'm guessing are hoping to take advantage of a lot of people bored at home, taking a look at their computers for some new things to maybe purchase, and that's Etsy and Pinterest.
That's right. Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. People are they're bored at home, and Pinterest was doing really well before this. Last quarter they had fantastic numbers come in. I think their monthly average users were up about 25%. They're increasing revenue per user, so they were doing really well before this hit. But then if we look at how well they're doing as far as short-term moving average, like a 7-day moving average on the purchase intent of people using Pinterest, it's up significantly, like really high, like 68% just over the last week or so when you look at that. And so Pinterest is doing really well getting people to log on. And of course, that's about 2/3 female. A lot of women are using that. Most of those females are moms. So they've got a lot of the revenue producing power for the household. And a lot of people are discovering new items on Pinterest as well. So that's a fantastic place for a lot of the bored housewives out there, or women that are just trying to find something to do. They're sharing things with each other. They're discovering new things to buy, and they're buying those. You can see on the chart here, look at that 7-day moving average. Ever since basically the quarantine started, it is up, rocketing up higher, much higher than it was in the past. So Pinterest definitely taking advantage, even though their stock has been just decimated. I think they're down 45%, something like that, from highs in February. So this is a nice little discrepancy. A little bit of a divergence between purchase intent and stock price could be an opportunity for Pinterest investors.
Landon, I can't imagine a scenario where these two stocks, Etsy and Pinterest, aren't flourishing in this environment. The only thing I can think of is this: small business that, as you saw in the ADP report today, took the brunt of of the job losses over the last month. Could that be their target market? Those people who run small businesses and operate small businesses, and maybe that's where. So, because you're right. I can't imagine how these companies aren't doing well, but their stocks have both actually been decimated. Now, they both snapped back a percentages from where they were, but they both got hit really hard. Could it be that small business aspect that's taking a hit here, Landon?
Maybe. I think, for Pinterest, I think it's mostly that the female demographic, the moms that are getting on and shopping. Now, maybe household budgets are tightening up a little bit, and maybe just spending is tightening up a little bit in general because you're not going out to buy things. But a lot of these purchases are online, especially when you look at Etsy. That is all online. And of course, they were decimated. You just had the chart up. I think they went from 60 down to 37 or so, even though, again, they had a good quarter last quarter before all this. And now more and more people are using them. They're using them as sellers and buyers. And when you look at not only purchase intent, which is people talking about using the platform either as a seller or a buyer, or when you look at people discovering new items on Etsy, that's doing well also. So here you can see purchase intent at all-time highs, trending higher before this, and getting a little pop into the quarantine. They actually, I think in 2019, they created 1.7 million jobs. And what's interesting, if you consider all these sellers as jobs, what's interesting is these people are getting a stimulus package. So they included, it's the bailout for small businesses includes independent contractors, which is what the people on Etsy are. So they're going to be able to hang in there until, all this passes and they can start selling again. So we're seeing a surge in people finding things on Etsy. This is consumers discovering new things to buy. So Etsy's doing a really good job of not only getting more sellers, but also bringing more buyers. And they're doing some interesting things to get there, because so last quarter, they forced a couple of things on sellers that basically they're saying, look, we know how to sell really well, and we're going to make you do this. One was basically they made them do free shipping. If they didn't, they were demoted in the search results. And then they're also for the top sellers, they're mandating an ad program where they advertise on your behalf and they take a percentage, maybe 10 or 15%, something like that. So Etsy's being a little bit forceful with their sellers, but they've got the data, they've got the research, they know what sells best. So they're helping their sellers in a sort of a forced way, but it's creating a lot more profitability for these sellers and driving a lot of new buyers into the company, into the platform. So doing well. And again, there's a huge discrepancy between just what's going on with the stock price and what we're seeing as far as purchase intent and usage online.
No, it is super interesting to see that divergence within your data and the stock price. I want to come back to that in just a second. I actually thought, though, when Kevin said that in no scenario he can imagine somebody who's going to say that he would use either one of these services. But with that, I don't think maybe a lot of people who are watching at home are super familiar with these two particular products. Walk me through some of the similarities between the two from what you know, Landon, and some of the differences. And then also, I know that a lot of our conversations have been around trend shifts and what sticks on the other side of this pandemic in terms of true trend shifts and new ways of business to work. Is this potentially one of those trend shifts where, people are using it now and on the other side, it remains?
Right. No, I think that's a great question. First, I'll talk about the two platforms, and I'm not their target user, but I have used both. I know that Pinterest is more about discovery and sharing, and a lot of the times what's great about it is they serve ads, but they're the kind of ads that people want to see because they know what you're very interested in. They know what you post about, what you share, what you save, what you pin to your board. And so they're sharing things that are extremely relevant to you. And we're seeing when we dive into the data, looking at people who look at the ads and like what they see and end up buying, it's very high. And these are not the intrusive, annoying kind of ads that other sites use. So these are actually helpful ads. And then on Etsy, you've got very small business type people, independent contractors, sole proprietors who are making crafts, who are doing things and getting out there in the marketplace, sort of like what eBay could have been if they would have executed a little bit differently. And so these are small stores, if you want to call that. And so people can go on and search for different things and discover new interesting crafts and different products that independents are making. And so Etsy takes a little bit of piece of that on both sides. And then as far as getting new users in, I think that's a great example. I think Etsy probably will benefit more from this as people are staying home and shopping online and just discovering that, hey, there's a lot of cool stuff on this platform. Maybe I'll start buying from here. But when you look at Pinterest, the usage is up so much that maybe they're also bringing in a ton of new users who are just changing their behavior. And this will last throughout the quarantine and afterwards, as they discover that, all their friends are on, they like discovering things, and they like buying from Pinterest.
Kevin, I want to bring you back into this conversation as well. From what I'm hearing from Landon there is, something like Etsy might actually be kind of a saving grace in a way for some of these small businesses that are needing a way to get their products to the consumer. And when, there's a shutdown elsewhere, maybe this is an easy way for them to set up some type of e-commerce business. I could be wrong with that, though. And then what I hear about Pinterest is, this is people looking for ideas of things they might want to buy. And then Pinterest is directing you to those things online, making that next step a little bit easier. So it sounds like, I think the way he describes it there, lack of intrusion on the ads front is very important because, people are almost welcoming those ads a lot different than something like Facebook, who's trying to, shove those ads to you as opposed to you asking for them. But any questions for Landon there or any thoughts on kind of that analysis from what I'm gathering?
I just think Landon brought up a really good discussion topic that could be its own show, frankly, and that is, how did eBay miss this target market? Or how did they allow Etsy to wrestle this target market away from them and do it better? Right? I mean, eBay, you're right, Landon. eBay was doing this a long time ago. How did they lose this swath of people that are now using Etsy? And it's going to be an amazing story. I don't know how they lost focus of that group.
Yeah, I think it was all about the auctions for eBay, and I think that's where it kind of went south for them because they did have stores for a while, but I think the auctions were so ingrained that, a lot of times you want to go on, you want to see a product that you like, and you just want to buy it. You want to see the price and just buy it. And I think that eBay was just so associated with the auction aspect of it that it kind of turned people off. And they really didn't do a great job of just saying, you know what, you can have your own store, because there's a mix between the two. You could buy now and you could also bid on things. Etsy just cut through all that and just said, you know what, open up a store, offer free shipping, be great at what you do, and people come and buy stuff. So yeah, it's interesting that eBay had this idea, 10 years ago? They just didn't execute nearly as well as Etsy.
Landon, one question here now on kind of execution for next step here. How do we trade this? What do we do with this information? I know that this is arguably your guys' favorite divergence in terms of how you track things. You see a strong uptrend for the product itself or the service that a particular company is offering, and a steep decline in the stock price. This divergence, is a bullish divergence, I'd assume. But with everything going on in the macro environment and all the uncertainties with this pandemic in terms of how long it's going to last and what the overall lasting effects may be, both economically and, just health-wise across the globe, does that make you guys a little bit less aggressive in a stance that you take? Or are you guys still looking at this and saying, hey, this is an aggressive opportunity?
Yeah, I think it does tone things down a little bit, because when you look at who's buying and how much money that family makes, and what these kind of purchases are, think about, if you're buying something from Etsy, it's not something that you need, it's something that you'd like to have. Same thing, generally speaking, for the ads you see on Pinterest. And so this is discretionary money. And if discretionary budgets start tightening up because the economy's struggling or going into recession, then I think that ad revenue and sales on Etsy are going to really start to pull back. And so usage may be really high, but it's really a question of who's buying. Right now, we're still seeing a lot of people buying on both platforms, but it really just depends on what your macro outlook is. Is this going to last for a long time? Are we going to bounce back? So as the economy goes, I think these two companies go, but they're both poised for a very quick comeback if things do turn around, because they've got that consumer demand. They've got that fan base that's ready to come in and start buying and start clicking on ads on Pinterest, buying on Etsy. And so it's really just a matter of how long this lasts. I think they're both oversold if we get any kind of recovery in the economy.
If that buying isn't going to be, behind some of the clicks, is Pinterest in better position from how you look at it? Because they're just trying to show usership numbers. They're just trying to show people interested in these ads, as opposed to Etsy actually trying to, allow sellers to sell products.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like the fact that you're going to use Pinterest no matter what. Whether or not you're looking for a specific product. Etsy, you're going there to spend money as a buyer, right? Pinterest, you're going there because you and your friends use it. You like ideas, you like discovering ideas, and every once in a while you see a relevant ad that you're interested in, and maybe it's more of an impulse buy. So I think the fact that you've got people as a destination going to Etsy and people as an afterthought buying on Pinterest may weigh in favor of Pinterest. The only thing that, again, I like about the Etsy story is that all these sellers are going to be able to weather the storm a little bit better with this bailout that is for small businesses, but includes independent contractors, which I think is an interesting move by the administration that's going to help those sellers weather the storm. But for the meantime, I do like Pinterest a little bit better because of those reasons.